There are many, many roadblocks in life that people come across. And our students, who are first generation students, run into those roadblocks in their attempt to enter college. Having an organization like On Point for College that can help students to navigate those roadblocks, that allows those students to reach their full potential, I believe is the difference in having a subpar community and an explosive community where people have the opportunity to give back and grow and develop and move their families out of poverty. So the work that we are doing here at On Point for College bridges an important gap. And the gap that we're finding that we're able to bridge really is at the college level, but it also is at post-secondary opportunities. Many of our students are choosing college, and that's why On Point is so important, because so many of them wouldn't be able to get there if it wasn't for the support that On Point and our volunteers give. If I could just give you some examples of how meaningful this is. We've had volunteers that have taken our students on transportation trips and developed relationships with them. And one of our students who speaks candidly about the support that On Point has done talks about one of the most important things they remember is a volunteer driving from Syracuse to Morrisville College to teach him how to cook chili because he'd never known how to cook before. And these are the kind of relationships that our volunteers develop with our students. I have another student, she speaks candidly about being from a low-income family, being financially disadvantaged, really being shy and not knowing anyone. One of our volunteers who owns a company developed a relationship with her, and she had a summer job with his organization every summer when she came home. These were in the early days of On Point before we had career services. Our volunteers have been stepping up and filling in the gaps to make that important transition for our students to being just members of a community to being important and giving members of a community.
I think what's deceptive about the organization and a little jealous, to be honest with you, seeing the kids that have gone through here and knowing that there was an organization with that kind of accessibility and that gives them that kind of guidance, especially from folks that come from the background that I came from, who didn't necessarily have the experience that would have transferred intergenerationally in terms of how to apply for college, where to get resources in terms of those applications and the like. So I think it's just such a tremendous, when I found out about it, I'm like, where was this during the time that I went to school, you know? But beyond that, I think it has such a deeper meaning for businesses such as myself. I've been able to capitalize on some of the most talented folks in Central New York through the internship program. But not only that, it's impacted my bottom line economically. I've been able to build some things through my business and further capacity through the utilization of those interns without having a significant impact on my bottom line to my business. Again, the talent that I've been able to discover out of there is wonderful. I'm hoping that we can get more exposure to some of those interns so that we can keep and retain some of that talent in Central New York.
The other thing I would add is that, sometimes I think about what On Point does as like wraparound. If you're a parent, you know about wraparound before and after care, right? That without those elements in your child's day or your family's day, stuff would be a lot more stressful and you definitely wouldn't get a lot done. And those supports, although they're not like traditional school, are really essential to making things run and to kids having successful days. And so I think about that on a sort of college level, what would be those wraparound services that students would need, right, that kids would need. And so for me, it's essential for our community. And I agree with Ricky. I wish something like that was around when I was in school. I was certainly, taking the Greyhound back and forth to college and, but what an asset to our community.
First of all, it started with a volunteer, which was me, working out of the trunk of my car, and so this is how we began. But all through these years, we could not have helped as many students. There were 8,000 students that went on to college. We never would have reached that many students if it weren't for volunteers working in a community center, or driving someone to college and giving them their best advice, or doing a mock interview with them so they have a chance to interview before they get in, or noticing that they don't have a winter coat and stopping at Walmart on the way in to make sure that they have one. One of my favorite quotes is from Margaret Mead. It says, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Hope you join the team.
The support of our volunteers in supporting On Point for College has been terrific. It has been so important and so meaningful to the success of On Point for College. We have thousands of students that we're working with and a staff that's working really hard, but there's no way they can meet all the needs that all of our students have. So having volunteers to come in and support those efforts has been the difference in On Point being successful and helping our students to get to the next level in life.
Well, I can give that to you in one word, and that is just absolute joy. That's the first thing I'd say about it. Being able to interact with these students that have some difficulties getting into college for any one of a number of reasons and succeeding there, to be able to provide transportation really means to be able to provide some conversation and some thoughts with them. And I choose the longer trips so I have a greater period of time to get to know these kids, and they've been so transparent with me, which I really appreciate. So since I grew up in a situation where it wasn't likely that I would get an education, but I did, and it made a world of difference. For me to impart that to others is just the greatest joy in the world. I would put it in one capsule sentence, if I may. For myself, I found the greatest joy, I think, that mankind can experience, shall I say, this side of heaven, is the joy that comes from serving other people in a way that you're called, in a way that connects with who you are. And since education is my passion, pure joy is about the only thing I can say.
Wonderful getting an opportunity to work with some of the younger generation. Specifically, I look at areas of my life where I struggled during college, college registration, and so many areas where I needed support. And this is a way for me to give back in a way that I knew where I struggled in those areas. The other side is just so giving, watching these young folks learn from the experience that I've been able to gather, the tremendous fortune that I've had of working inside of not-for-profit and outside of not-for-profit, but transferring that experience and seeing just how much they're relating to it, how mission-driven they are, and how much they've adapted to that work. It's been tremendously fulfilling.
It's been actually motivating and inspiring for us too, I think, in terms of the business and where we see things going. To hear their fresh perspectives, to, that energy. We specifically wanted, ask them for ideas, for feedback, for them to just go out and research a certain topic and come back and give feedback. And that is, being someone who comes from education is a really powerful thing when you can give a young person the reins and say, here's an idea, do some research on it and come back. That sort of inspires us too, and so it's been beneficial in that way, especially here at Syracuse, where, we want to keep those inspiring stories going. We want to uplift the community. We know we have some challenges, right, as a community, but we want to keep it moving positive.
Well, actually, it's given me an opportunity to give back to the community. I have been volunteering for On Point for probably the past 5 or 6 years, and have been able to see a lot of different areas of On Point, including the student success area, career development, fundraising, some strategic management stuff. So it's given me an opportunity to really give my skills to the community. I feel like we all have an opportunity and something to give, and many of us think like, well, what do I really have? But if you look at yourself and think about, what can I repackage that would be of value to somebody, then that's where kind of I went. To be able to share my skills and my life experience, which has been positive in some areas and failures in some areas. One thing I learned at On Point that really changed my perspective is that On Point is not an organization that feels like they have to do for the student or the person coming in, like looking for employment. On Point has a strong philosophy of accompanying the person, and I thought that was a real privilege to be able to work one-on-one. I mostly work with students and really accompany them on their journey and give them suggestions and show them the resources, but not to do something that they could already do for themselves, but really to be there for them and share their joy as they had successes, but also share some of the pain when they didn't always get what they wanted, or when they came in really downtrodden and feeling like they really didn't have a purpose for the world, and to be able to look at their skills, talk to them about that, and really work with them to come up with something that they could see was theirs and own it and really use that. So another thing is I learned a lot of new skills, just different data systems or different interviewing techniques, resume writing, communication skills, so I was really grateful for that. On Point students come from many cultures and they have many perspectives, and that was different for me. I hadn't had a lot of experience with that, and I found that working with the students, it really helped me understand their culture, understand their perspective, and it really widened my world. So obviously I found the experience very enriching, and it really changed my life. In fact, now when I meet a young person and we get talking and they're talking a little bit about what they're doing in high school, the first thing I say is, are you an On Point student? Do you know about On Point? And then I try to ask them, like, if you're not an On Point student, like, why aren't you an On Point student? Do you want to go to college? Are you looking for a career or a certificate program? What are you looking for? And then I usually say, well, if you're not an On Point student, what can I do to facilitate that, to get you to On Point and really get the services? So that's a way of giving service to On Point, just being an advocate for what they do. So I got to say, overall, and I know many people say, they got more than they gave, but I feel like On Point has enriched my life and my perspective on the world.
On Point, for me, has been a wonderful volunteer experience. I started almost 20 years ago volunteering with On Point. Heard Jenny Donahue give a presentation at our Rotary Club, and she spoke with such passion and explained what she was trying to do for the students that were in need that I thought it's a great idea and I've got to help. So I started driving as a volunteer, and that was a wonderful experience because I got to meet some students. And I realized after a couple of trips that driving was more than just driving, it's actually mentoring. So for the 2 to 3 hours we were in the car with the students, we had an opportunity to get to know each other, to talk about things. And another thing I learned quickly is that it's more satisfying if you repeat pickup students. In other words, if you pick the same students up, drop them off in the fall, pick them up for Thanksgiving, take them back for Christmas, and then pick them up again in the spring, you can develop a little relationship. And I've been able to follow a lot of those students through the years. Some of them are still, we're still in contact. I made them part of my network. I'm part of their network. And some of them have graduated, of course, and are working, have families themselves. And the student that I've known the longest actually has a daughter who's in college now. So we're on to the second generation for her. So it's been greatly enriching for me to know that what I'm doing actually helps, and I get to see some of the people that it helps. It's hands-on. I've also volunteered as to do some tutoring, and been on the board of directors for 12 years, which was a great experience. Also very enriching in a different way. I watched the board grow and develop from just a group of well-meaning people to being a group, a very diverse group with lots of different abilities, lots of different expertise to bring to the board and to help the organization grow. Also volunteered as a men's mentor. We realized after a few years that some of our students were graduating, coming back to Syracuse, going back into their same neighborhood, same situation, and they were armed with their college degree, but they didn't have a network of college-educated people to help them develop beyond college. And so we started mentoring groups, separate men's and women's, and I volunteered with the men's group, of course, and it's been very satisfying.
One way volunteering has impacted me is it's allowed me to be able to give back to an organization that I really care about. Being a volunteer, coming from being a student to being a volunteer really is fulfilling. It makes it come full circle. I always knew as a student, because of the things that they did for me, that I wanted to be able to give back and help in some way. That's why I volunteer, and that's why I enjoy helping out the organization as much as possible.
One program that really impacted me that I was a part of through OnPoint was my junior year of college going into my senior year. So last summer, I was a part of an internship that partnered OnPoint students with community members or employee hosts for an extended period of time for the summer. And through that program, I was paired with the YMCA, and their program was a summer learning institute called the Power Scholars Academy for elementary age students. And that really had a big influence on me, and especially in my last year of college, really navigating what it is that I wanted to do post-graduation. And it really solidified my interest in education, access to education, educational equity. And I can really thank that to both OnPoint and the employer, the Y, who volunteered to have OnPoint students hosted through this internship.
Volunteers from OnPoint had a major impact on my own educational career and success. Born and raised here in Syracuse, I knew one that I always kind of wanted to have the opportunity to go to Lemoyne College. Now where I work at after graduating, just the ability for volunteers to give so much time and to give so much energy into students is great. It allows for OnPoint as an organization to do so much more for students when they have volunteers who want to help and want to be a part of the organization's, goals to help young people find higher education.
Well, I just would like to say to all the volunteers out there that this is a wonderful opportunity that you can only grow and nourish, and it just nourishes your soul to know the impact you can have on young people. And because of your support, it can change people's lives 100-fold. And you just don't know it until you've worked with one of these young people and you've started hanging out with them. And so I would suggest, if you haven't, please take the opportunity to get to know some of our students, and you'll see it'll bless your heart to see the development that they will bring. And at the end of the day, we always tell everyone to keep it on point.